This is the 10th of January 2017. This is the Musical Theatre Vibes for.
My name is Ben Bristow, my KC number is 52831.
Okay, and we're starting on question 7, which is discuss professional working relationships and the impact of this in the rehearsal and performance process.
Okay, so personally for me, I've always tried to maintain like a sort of level-headedness when it comes to the process, keeping calm in any situations that come up, especially from past experience. You know, I've just learned that getting stressful doesn't help anything. And I wanted to maintain a professional manner when rehearsing and strive to make the process as smooth for me and as other people as possible. Morale's important, especially in this industry when you need to get along with who you're working with. Otherwise, you know, you get moments where people clash and they have arguments and stuff like that. And this process, for everyone, I think, has been quite stressful. You know, there's been times where people have been a little bit unprofessional, people haven't got along and had disagreements about things. And I think the thing is, I think it kind of goes down to two things. One, where people aren't motivated enough, and there's a few people who were very passionate about it and wanted to get it done, and I think the two sort of went together, clashed, and, you know, sort of went into a massive sort of feud with some people. But I think it's not to say that the group as a whole, when it got to the end of it, wasn't passionate about what we were doing, because the morale was quite high. I think when we got into the show week, it was quite, you know, people were starting to work together instead of, you know, having disagreements and stuff like that. But I think throughout this process, for me personally, when it got to those situations where people were disagreeing, I like I said, I kept a level head during it, and I wanted to make sure that personally for me, I didn't go under, because I know there were some points where my morale sort of slipped and I went, oh, I'm getting to a negative mindset and I need to, you know, cheer myself up and get into this process, because I know when you get to the end of it, it always comes out and it always works out to the best it's been, and I think, you know, that showed in the actual performance itself. But yeah, like I said, we got to it. I always try and focus on the end result, and despite, you know, the working relationships you have, I try to maintain as best possible ones with all of my ensemble and people I had to work with, because at the end of the day, you can't get to the end without them. You can't do it on your own. You need everyone around you. So for me, there's no point in trying to, if there's a disagreement, sort it out on the spot. Don't let it drag out over 14 weeks for me personally.
Okay, great. Your next question is 2.
Yeah.
How does the exaggerated form of reality impact on the acting style of musical theatre and indeed your subsequent work?
The exaggerated reality of musical theatre, I think, is for me is quite amazing actually, because it's exaggerated, but it's sort of it's weird. It's a form of naturalism as well in itself, but it's, you know, obviously the word exaggerated comes into it. But when you take that on stage, I've learned over sort of the course of this thing, because I've done this before in the HNC, but coming into this, I really wanted to have this sort of grip on who these characters are and really get into their sort of mindset. And
that's okay. Do you want me to ask the question?
yeah, no,
Just,
no, I didn't.
oh, that's okay. Do you want to start?
Yeah, I did question.
That's okay. So question 3 is, how do you avoid dualism? The artificial division of mind and body when acting for musical theatre, evaluate why this is an important element in your craft.
So when I worked in the past on my acting and in musical theatre, when I've done it before, I had sort of a very working brain. So I distinctly separate the character from the work, and I sort of like, there was no unity between them. I wasn't present on stage, and I didn't feel it in rehearsals a lot of the time in past performances. But this time I actually took the time to work on each character's development and their life and their story, trying to relate to them by watching different media, the musicals they've been in, also trying to relate it to my own personal experiences as well, because obviously every character you play has a bit of you in it, but it's also, you know, their life story and their qualities. But I tried to this time actually went in full front. I was like, you know, I'm going to follow Uta Hagen's 6 steps, almost sort of becoming them for a period of time as well. So when I was doing rehearsing at home or in rehearsals, I'd actually take the time out to sort of get into their mindset, be them for the rehearsals themselves, because it can only help me. It's a long process. I mean, I was trying to make the lyrics secondary to the person, so what they were saying wasn't just a song, wasn't just lyrics, it was their life and their experiences all rolled into this song, and the emotions they feel and the things they do, because I think physicality and the mindset, they have to be combined in this sort of thing, because otherwise you separate the two, you start to create different qualities for each thing, and it's like you don't fully get to grips with them. You divulge on a path of thinking, right, what do I do to achieve this? How am I going to do that? Right, I need to sing this in a certain way, I need to do this. Where in reality, if you're acting this person on stage, musical or not, you just have to think, this is their story, what's my end goal? I need to get somewhere. What am I thinking when I'm saying this? And it is a long process. And Uta Hagen actually said once, she said, all tedious research is worth one inspired moment. And it's funny because it's true. It's a long process, it's a stressful process. You go through this and you have to work so hard to get it. But I see that quote and I say, well, it's kind of contradicting myself, but it's you get to that end process and it's worth it. Every second is worth it because you truly give across to an audience and sometimes even yourself that you are this person, and all that time you spend is worth it. And I just think linking the body and vocals into one creates that unity. I also use meditating to sort of get my head clear and be able to get away from myself. Alexander technique, semi-supine, but also exercises from other units, but they sort of come into it as a whole process, not just for this in general.
Okay, and the next question is question 4. How have you developed as a vocalist, and which techniques have you used to stretch and challenge your ability?
Okay, this is the big one. So I haven't done singing in about 2 years. The last time I did was in HNC when I did musical theatre before. Casually I have, but not professionally. But this time when I came into this, I was sort of wanting to push myself further than I'd gone before, because I think it would have helped me personally, confidence-wise, because I think a lack of confidence is what caused me to turn down things and not be as strong as I could have been, but also my character development. So there's songs like You'll Be Found and Goodbye Until Tomorrow. They were sort of endurance challenges for me, because one, there was a long, I had being put in the tenor group, going high and being able to do these higher octaves. I'd never really gone to those sort of places before for extended periods of time, so not for as long as I would need to, so for the whole entirety of the song. So I'd go up and down using like the NG siren, so I go up and down trying out to test my vocal ranges, because for me, being able to maintain a higher octave is a lot harder than probably I think it is. But I found that a challenge at first, but relaxing the jaw by moving the tongue around the mouth, and also chewing sticky toffee. They're all necessary because I did them before every singing rehearsal and musical theatre rehearsal as it got later in the process, because the more I did them, the more I practiced them, the easier it became. It speaks for itself really. But I took steps to get slowly into my head voice, so I actually found an article on a website called Forco, and it's by Katrina Schmidt, and she had this weird exercise I thought would never work, but it actually did. I took fairy tales and started actually reading them in my head voice as opposed to just normal, to try and get into that sort of range that I would need. And surprisingly enough, it was actually starting to work, because I would do that and immediately do the song, and I would find that I was actually reaching those points. Also yawning, but going from the highest place I can when I start the yawn to the lowest, and also maintaining breath control, because that was really important for Sweeney near the ending, where I have to get up to a really high octave very quickly, and for Jamie in Goodbye Until Tomorrow, because he has to hold a note for quite long, and getting to that note with that one breath is actually, on retrospect, really key, because it actually gives off the vibe that he's hurting, and getting to that end with one last breath. I took extra classes to work on the songs, because I really wanted to try this time to get into the best possible frame that I could to be able to do these songs. And I think key moments definitely came from Sweeney, because I had to belt and have a high octave at the same time, and be able to push it out and really push myself to get it out. Like I said before, Jamie's I Could Never Rescue You had to get to the end of that note without taking on one breath, which was a challenge through, because there were times where I couldn't do it and times where I had to take a breath in different places. And there's a bit near the end of Dear Evan Hansen, You'll Be Found, where they say you are not alone, and it's in quite a high octave. I was pushing myself the entire time to try and get there. I think in the last show I just managed to do it, and I don't think I've ever been prouder of myself in one moment where I could actually get that high and maintain it and explode for Pugsley, the one line he has in the song. It's one line, but it was the high thing to maintain because I don't normally speak in that sort of head voice normally, let alone singing.
Sure. Okay, so we've got just under 3 minutes left.
Okay.
So your next question is, what transferable skills have you gained from this module and how will this benefit you as an actor?
I think whenever I've done musical theatre, I've always actually never come out empty-handed. I've always had something to take with me. And pushing myself this time has really shown what I'm capable of, because I've pushed myself out of my comfort zone in terms of the voices and being able to reach higher octave, etc. Approaching roles for me completely changed because of this unit now. I think I'm going to take forward how I've approached it, because I think this was a more successful way that I've done it, being able to really delve deep into these characters, despite only being on stage for 3 minutes with them. If I can take that to an entire play where I'm one person for a thing, I couldn't think what I could achieve, But I just think I could get deeper meaning behind them and be able to show what I am capable of. But making choices is also something else that I struggled with acting and in the past with musical theatre. I didn't push myself enough to make these varied choices, and it showed in the beginning of this unit. I wasn't, willing to make those choices because I think it's weird to say it, but it's like I felt like I would become sort of making these weird choices but looking stupid. That was what I was always afraid of, this confidence thing. But I think I sit there and having these moments of reservation in myself, and I'm sort of beyond it now. I want to be beyond it anyway, because I've learned not to care about these choices. If they make me look stupid, there could be the one time I decide not to make a choice and I miss out on a great opportunity that I could have had by not making that choice. But yeah, I've learned not to be as reserved, and I think as well, seeing the whole confidence thing with the octaves as well and being able to push myself to get higher, I think that will go across as well, because it can open up my opportunities for more parts in plays. It's not just about singing, it can be divulged to a character's speech or anything like that. It's simple to really when you think about it.
Yeah, great. I've just got one thing I just want to go back on, which is when you're talking about working with other people,
Yeah.
How did you deal with the stress? You talked a little bit about meditation, but maybe you can unpack that a little bit more.
Well, I think when the start of the process hit and things started to go a little bit skewy, I sort of had to go back, come away from every lesson, go back in with a fresh mindset and not let myself divulge on things that had happened and keep going over them, because at the end of the day, I just feel like if you go over and over things again and again and again, all it does is make you struggle more in the future.
Thank you.